You are now listening to Creative Hora.
Hi everyone, welcome to Creative Hora. I'm Dalia.
And I'm Mary.
We're super excited to welcome you back for another episode between two friends. But Mary, I'm really excited about this episode because I think there's a lot going on, but also because I'm excited to check in with you, friend. Like, how are you doing? What's the vibe?
Yeah, a lot going on is I think an understatement. See, there you go again with my giggling and humor coping mechanism. But I think the vibe, I would say right now, it's kind of I don't know. I've had to tap in a lot in like my grounding tools.
What has been that tool this week that's been helping?
Yeah, I think it's lots of different things. Just one being very focused on the present moment and specifically like things that are within my control. So that's a couple of things I've tapped into is really one is writing down like what I'm feeling current moment and really just sitting with them and also just remembering and writing down the people that love me and support me is another thing that I've tapped into this week. And then just allowing myself to also disconnect from the media. It's inevitable in some regards because whether it's a friend texting me about the news, the election, the disappointing news, and or it's someone sending me an article about it. I mean, it's really hard to disconnect, but I think having a conscious decision to not engage for even if it's just a few hours or a few days has helped me remain grounded and of course like therapy is always good. Shout out to my therapist who she doesn't know she's my homegirl, but it's always good to just have like a person who's like their expertise is just listening to talk and vent and really understand things that are going through my head. So those are some things that I've tapped into this week for sure.
Yeah, I love that, friend. Thank you so much for sharing that. I do see some alignment there with
Mm-hmm.
even just disconnecting a bit from the news cycle, and just really being present with my emotions and what's coming up, because it has been, to your point, lots of like, we came from a really high weekend of lots of joy, which we will get
Mm-hmm.
into as we get into the
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah, we
to
will.
then post-election emotion. So yeah, I definitely resonate with some of the stuff you mentioned with writing down specific things of like people that I care about, that I know care about me. I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of video journaling recently, so
Mm-hmm.
every time I'm feeling an emotion, I'll capture it in video and I'll talk
Yeah.
through it, and then afterwards I'll watch it back. So it's a process where I'm like really, I've been doing that for a couple of months now consistently,
Mm-hmm.
and it is helpful to go back and see different emotions and understand my headspace, especially with this post-election. There's a lot of emotions I was feeling, so I'm made sure to capture that, and probably will take more time to process. But thank you for sharing a little bit about some of the tools in your kit, friend.
Yeah, no, I know you've mentioned a video journaling, and I think it's a super like amazing concept that's different from writing journaling or even communicate in terms of communicating also like processing. So it's very different. And I am very curious. I haven't tried it yet. I think I tried it like once, but not like in full capacity. So I'm curious to hear more as you continue that journey with your video
Yeah,
journaling. So, super cool.
definitely. I'll share a montage of me crying. That's probably what it'll be. Lots of like, I'm always,
No, it's
yeah.
great.
But yeah, I think the most beneficial part is definitely watching it back, because I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, okay,
Exactly.
I can sit with the emotion.
Right. Right. Yeah. Definitely. But I think it's time for like a color card of the day. And again, for our audience, we are introducing this new thing where we pick out a card. Again, I'll show it to you, friend. Where gray is dreams, yellow is life lessons, green is expose, the light sky blue is courage,
Mm.
the red orange is believes, or the dark blue is self-awareness. Any
Oh,
color that's speaking
okay.
to your mind?
I think I chose last time, friend. So it's your
Okay,
turn to
I'll
pick a
choose. I'll
color.
choose
Yeah.
Biden. Hmm. Let's do yellow life lessons.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Let's see.
I'm really loving this, friend, because I feel like
I know.
I'm gonna learn something new about you.
Okay. Oh wow, this is great. Okay. The question is, what piece of advice would you give your younger self if you
Wow.
could? And mind you, this is like from a deck of cards, so it was like very random. Hmm. Talk about loaded.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm gonna give her all the cheat codes, like better
I know,
invest
right?
in crypto. I'm just kidding.
Invest in NFTs, bitch. No, I'm kidding.
Or don't. I'm just kidding.
Or don't, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I like that. There's so much. Like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess whatever comes to mind first.
Okay.
You want to
I think I'm
take a
ready. Yeah.
first step on it?
So
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, this has been a quote that I don't really remember where I first heard it, so I'll probably have to like link that or something. But it's a very popular quote. It says like speak up even if your voice shakes. And I feel like there was like so many times when I was younger where I was always like labeled like a really like nice kid, good girl. Like I didn't
Mhm.
really speak
Mhm.
up. I was shy, I was timid. I wasn't like exactly a teacher's pet, but you know, I got all my work done and I was a good student. But there were so many moments where growing up, I felt such a disconnect from the way that I would present myself at school to the way that I would present myself at home because I felt like I wasn't like speaking up as much as I wanted to in school and like all these community spaces. And so, yeah, I would tell myself to speak up, even if my voice shakes, because there were so many moments
Mm.
where I feel
Mhm.
like there was so much I wanted to share and I
Mhm.
wouldn't share it because I was afraid. And it wasn't until I got to
Mm.
college and even my professional career that I started to understand that me speaking up makes such a big difference. And just having your voice heard by one person can make such a big impact. I've been
Yeah.
in college, I did a little bit more of that, like speaking to students, speaking to individuals that had a similar journey, like first generation, low income, and just being able to speak about my experience and share that was so powerful, even in
Mhm.
just connecting with others. So I'm a little bit sad that I didn't give myself that opportunity when I was younger to speak
Hmm.
up and find new ways to connect with people because
Mhm.
I do think that I felt like I was so misunderstood, but it was
Mhm.
part of the reason that I wasn't speaking up.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I like that in terms of I guess like just a follow-up question. What do you think like the moment was when you I guess realized this about yourself? Was it being transitioning to an environment like Berkeley where people were just speaking up all the time? Was it more so um maybe situations that you were in that you're like, maybe I should speak up because it didn't sit well with me. So just curious, friend, what do you think those are the pivotal turning points for you realizing that you have so much power in your voice?
Yeah, that's a really great question, friend. And I will say, like, in my body, there's certain things that I would feel where it would give me
Mm.
like an urgency that I needed to say something. But like my neck will start getting hot, my heart will start
Mm-mm.
beating fast. And of course those are signs of like nerves, right? But those are signs of like my body wants to say something. And I always found it like I would get these type of symptoms in my body when I wanted to say something, but I wasn't. So I would like keep it inside, and so that was on a physical level, what I felt in my
Mm-hmm.
body that was urging me to speak up. But then
Mm-hmm.
the second thing is once I started being involved more in community based organizations, like I said, I really realized that in order to really connect with others, you have to put yourself out there. If you want to
Mm.
build community, you have to, sometimes be the first one to break the ice and speak up. And
Yeah.
even now, like, one of my goals in my creative life project is to build more community, meet more creatives, and I have to be willing to be open to those conversations and sharing my thoughts and my unique
Mm-hmm.
experience, because that's what will really allow people to resonate with me. If I speak up and they hear something and there's resonance, that's how we build that initial connection. And so I started to
Mm.
see that across my interactions in college and my professional life as well.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I think that reminded me of like the piece of advice I would give my younger self is like the beauty of having emotional vulnerability. Because I
Mm,
think a lot of my younger self was so like survival driven and logical driven and thinking of ways to come up with a solution and problem solve. And over time, I was pretty much hardwired that way, but realized that how much I rejected just a lot of even the concept of processing emotions and embracing being vulnerable with others. So that's what, like when you said like building community and speaking up, like for me it was sharing that like this is how I feel or this is what I went through and like my younger days and sharing it with people that felt safe. But because I was so logical in the way I operated through life, it actually blocked a lot of emotions where I couldn't be vulnerable. I had a lot of kind of like acquaintances or friendships, but it was because I was able to adapt. But I realized that a lot of those relationships didn't have like the emotional depthness that I look for in relationships now. Um, and with that, I think I was also able to be more emotionally in tune with myself and my yeah, just like my purpose and passion and that took being emotionally vulnerable and being okay with the emotions, but
yeah.
being raised in a first generation low income family, you're raised to kind of like, no, you don't show your weakness or you just keep going, you figure it out yourself. And it worked for a long time, but I think over the years I realized, and the piece of advice I would definitely give my younger self is like there's so much beauty in just being emotionally vulnerable and giving space for for the emotions to just be there and not really have to justify it or add logic to it. Is a beautiful like I guess like journey that I've been on. And so yeah.
Oh, I love that, friend. I really appreciate you sharing that. And similar to what you asked me, was there like a point where you realize, like,
Yeah.
I'm seeking this emotional vulnerability and I want to go like deeper with myself and deeper with others? What was that point where you realized this is something that you wanted to work on?
Yeah, for me it was more so based on like relationships I had with people. And not necessarily like just romantic, but even friendships that didn't work out long term or and I felt like I was seeing the same cycles of patterns and the same results. Like things would end very outlandish or very just like not so peaceful. and um and it's because it's a lot of projections on both ends. So I think once I tapped into like, what was I feeling when I wanted to have this really bad outburst on this person or vice versa, like, I
Mm.
wonder what projections they had on me. So I think once I started doing that, I just realized like, oh, like wow, like I never took time to really think about how I felt in the situation or what feelings I was potentially projecting onto others. And so yeah, for me it was based on just like the outcomes of relationships I had that wasn't working for me anymore and it just didn't sit well with me. And I felt like in quotes it brought me out of character, like things I would didn't think that I would like resonated with me essentially. And so yeah, I think those are like the key pivotal moments for sure. That yeah, that brought out this like, oh my god, like there's so much beauty in just emotional vulnerability, especially if I don't want to see the same damn results anymore.
That's so interesting, friend, because even when I think about, what we've shared where like I'm talking about being like really quiet, timid, and then the opposite of that, it's
Mhm.
almost like a dichotomy, right? Like you're in a box and
Mhm,
you don't
mhm.
fit that box, so you want to break out of that box. And then similarly, like it sounds like you were almost in a box where you're attracting the same type of energy, maybe people that were opposite of you being more
Right.
like more logical, you'd attract maybe more emotional people. And I feel like it's kind of similar once we like
Yeah.
break out of these self-imposed ideas about ourselves. Like I really did feel like maybe that was my role, just to be quiet and be timid and do well in school. And that role worked for me for so long. It was like I'm so thankful
Mhm.
because I always like thank that person in me, because obviously that got me to Cal. I graduated from Berkeley. So whatever I did worked there. But to your point, there is a point where you start seeing the same cycles and you realize this something internally has to change. And so with you, friend, when
Mhm.
you share your experience, it sounds like similarly there was similar patterns and relationships you were seeing that were in a way putting you in a box that you no longer resonated with and you didn't want to
Yeah.
be in at all, because you're not an in a box person at all.
No, definitely not. And I've never really pictured it that way, but when now I'm just visualizing what you said and how I felt in terms of just opening up more emotions. Yeah, you're like I definitely resonate that I felt yeah, like boxed in terms of the energy, whether it was the energies I was attracting, the people I was attracting, and again, more so like the outcomes of these relationships I was attracting. Yeah, I felt like boxed in, and that wasn't who I am, and it didn't align. So it required a lot of just internal vulnerability and creating space for myself to really open up emotionally to get out of that box because I'm
Mhm.
definitely not a in the box person, like you said.
Yeah, friend. And I guess this is a really good transition to ask. You've tapped into this emotional vulnerability. You broke some cycles in that process. How do you think that enabled you to, get to a place today with your current partner where it's like a healthy emotional dynamic?
Yeah, and like just to share some news to the audience. My ass is engaged and fiancéed. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
So yes, that whole like beautiful proposal happened and um couldn't be more joyful to have spent it with you, friend, and a lot of family members and chosen family that really support us and really care about us. And yeah, I think that weekend was just really like memorable and forgettable. I felt all the love, felt all the support. Um, but that's like, and I think I could have, that weekend could have not have happened without the emotional vulnerability. Um, I'm in an engaged partnership where my partner sees me for who I am and feels so seen and validated, and vice versa, where I see her for who she is and I validate her entirety of her being for what she has to offer and what's just who she is as an entire being. And I think I could have like
Girl,
even
not
a
me cried.
oh no. Yes, all the tears, happy tears. No, and I think none of this would have been possible without like it took a partner like her to really feel safe and feel like this is the rawest part of me emotionally and my background and who I am. Not like I take it or leave it, but like she just made me feel so safe and so like seen and validated and the ebbs and flow and just the difficult conversations where we didn't see eye to eye, but never once have felt attacked or felt belittled. And I think that took a lot of just me trusting her and their
Mhm.
partnership. And and yeah, I think marriage was such a far, like far concept from me, especially coming from a family that did not have successful marriages, and I've never seen a successful marriage. But I think it's a beautiful journey to create this one with my partner of creating that new kind of dynamic of what marriage and partnership and love
Mhm.
means for me and her, as we take on this new milestone.
Oh, I love it, friend. I love it. Yeah, and I'm so thankful that I got to be there with you this past weekend, celebrating you and your partner, you and Amani. And it was the most like beautiful moment. And I've shared this with Mary personally. Um, but it is really incredible to see two people that complement each other fully, that they bring out the best in each other. And as individuals, are just the most phenomenal people, kind, caring, loving. And then together, that is just like an overabundance of that care and love.
Mhm.
In the partnership, but also the people around them. So I feel so incredibly thankful to have been there, and I'm just so incredibly excited for you and Amani and what this
I
next
know.
part of the journey holds for both of you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that on the podcast, friend.
No, yeah, and I appreciate you. Again, just your presence, and you mean a lot to me as my friend, and like I could have not felt any more supported by you and by your presence there. So appreciate you and
You
you
see,
coming. Yeah, I
feminine
know, right?
glamour.
No, I love that. I guess with that friend, with in terms of like, I know we started talking about this creative pulse check, and in our last time we were talking about you again, like being in the community with the creators, being just really immersed with the creatives and their not necessarily their products, but or services. Now I'm sounding like a sales pitch. No, I'm kidding. But with like their creation, like how's that been? Like anything new in terms of filling your creative wellness toolkit?
Yeah.
Any events that you'd like to share in terms of yeah, like where you've been the past couple weeks or so?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. Um, it's so interesting because, yeah, last time I talked to you, friend, I was talking about, I really want to find that creative life project that I'm going to,
Mhm.
obviously, as myself, I'm the creative life project, but also that, project outside of myself that I'm pouring
Mhm.
into, that I'm co creating. And I was pretty honest last time that I don't know what that is. Like I really do feel like I'm a baby and I'm like trying to figure
Mhm.
out what my creative outlet is, and I'm not quite sure. I have some ideas, but I'm still trying to figure it out. And that was really the purpose behind wanting to chat with creators, wanting to be out there in the community. But I realized as I'm doing that, I had to take a big, step back.
Mhm. Mhm.
um because at the foundation, I really wanted to focus on, really making sure that I felt secure and loving towards myself and have that foundation of, self care, self love first before I start pouring that out to the world. And it doesn't mean that it can happen at the same time. It definitely can. I can go through this journey of, figuring out myself as a creative life project while I'm also
Mhm.
trying to figure out how that manifests outside of myself. But I will say the last few weeks have been, putting up these like pillars of what it means to love myself in my day to day. So, for example, like very clear
Mm.
things that I started to do was like I really care about being informed on my current events. I really cared about,
Mm.
making sure that I understand what's happening in the world, even if I don't agree, but so that I can think critically about it. And, I started to really actually make it a part of my routine where I'm listening to a bunch of podcasts in the morning
Mhm.
at really high speed, but just to fill my brain with knowledge. That started making me feel really,
Mm.
really, really good of just getting my mind buzzing. So I was like, okay, one, yeah, definitely I'm gonna start with that piece. I started like running every single day, and
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
realize I liked running. So I'm like, okay, that's like another something that I care about that makes me feel very connected with my body,
Mm.
in my body, which is so important to me. I finished like two books in the past month and just like
Oh my
reading a lot.
gosh.
I know.
So
I think like
awesome.
I don't count the audiobooks. There was I finished a couple audiobooks there, but I don't count those.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to really reconnect with myself on the foundational level and then
Mhm.
start building on top of that a bit more. I'm not closed off to connecting with
Mhm.
creators. If anything, it makes me feel more open to connection because I feel more present in my body, in my mind, and just in reading in my emotional health. And then of course, like having the this past weekend going out and flying to DC and spending time with,
Mhm.
a community of people that I love just enhances that, that love that I have for
Mhm.
myself, that I'm able to connect with such incredible people. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really am so lucky. So foundationally, taken a step back and I'm like, okay, let me think
Yeah.
about my pillars of self-care, self-love, self-esteem. And then as I'm doing that, I'm still also continuing to build and community and try
Mhm.
to connect with creators and stuff. But I will say, quite frankly, the last month or the last couple of weeks since we last chatted, I haven't gone to as many events as I wanted
Mhm.
to. But definitely do think that I've done a lot of like inner reflection on myself, and just foundationally getting to like a place where I'm like, okay, it's almost my birthday, so those reflections are
Yes.
coming up too. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's been a really
Mhm.
nice couple of weeks where I've been feeling really connected with my inner self.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, everything you said, I just heard like self love, self love, self love here. Let me throw in a little dose of self love here. And the really just pouring into like what fulfills you emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And and what better way to do that than with yourself? So then when you do go to that next creator event, like wow, you just more appreciative and in tune with just being in that space and co-creating with them in terms of just with them sharing their work with you as an audience or as a spectator, but also you as a like as someone that's absorbing the creative process in such an high like vibrational alignment with self. So I could just see that like wow, like I can't wait to hear about your next event and now that you've implemented these things where it's a lot of focus is on your self-care and self-love. So appreciate you sharing that.
Definitely, friend. I'm like, I got 6 more months of the Saturn return. I gotta make it. I gotta use up as much knowledge and wisdom as possible.
No, definitely. That Saturn return, post Saturn return
But
hits definitely different.
right, you're on the other side right now. You're like, I'm in the post Saturn return vibes. But yeah, I think that's like even more important, friend, when we're thinking about just like where we're at in the present, post election, like
Mhm.
having these pillars of still taking care of ourselves, still loving
Mhm.
ourselves, um, but doing so in a way where we can also balance that with the communities that we've built, and just
Exactly.
doubling down on those communities of care. So yeah, I think it's definitely a balance. And I guess, friend, I have to ask this because I we chatted briefly about this, but
Yeah.
one of the things that I mentioned was like, friend, like post election, there's a lot of emotions happening. Like, how does that change our space in Creative Aura? Does that impact what we're doing here today?
Mm. And I love this question because I think in reflecting of what we stand for and the platform we want to create, um, I think that me personally, we've created this platform where we tap in and lean in on each other, whether it's us two as friends or with a third party as a creative, and having that community again, like that creator focused platform where we look at them as an individual, and we're also very intentional with who we invite in the platform. Like there has to be a lot of values alignment with the creative that we invite, and I think more than ever, our platform has become even more important to lean into, to really like, unite together in terms of the communities we've built. And for me personally, like it's such an important platform to have with you. So to continue to create those spaces where we do feel safe together, sharing ideas and checking in with each other, but also creating a that third virtual space with the creatives themselves. Um, and I think that like I don't think it really changes any like our mission of Creative Aura, but I think it just enhances the importance of having this platform. But curious to hear like where you're at. Like, do you think like, how do you think our platform would it change, or do you think that there's a different component that maybe post elections we're seeing that we should be implementing in our space?
Yeah, to be honest, friend, I did reflect on this and I was thinking about this, and I really do believe that, we're aligned there in terms of we have already been building this incredible community. We've been very thoughtful about the
Mm-hmm.
creators that we bring on, the values that we care about, the conversations that we're having. Those are things that we've been very intentional about. And so community being a pillar of that, it has
Yeah.
been, a huge component. Wellness being a pillar of that as well.
Yep.
But the third one really being like just being in joy and being in playfulness, which has been like
Yes.
such a big part of it as well. So bringing all these things together, bringing in the community, bringing in the play, and bringing in the I forgot what I said was the other pillar. But bringing all these components together, it's already what we've been doing. So I don't think nothing changes. If anything, we just double down on what we've been doing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
find ways to expand this community, if anything.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but friend, I'm thinking about Creative Hora and thinking about our creative life projects as ourselves, but I really want to hold space for you to talk a little bit about your life project, because when I'm talking about all these things post election that are so important, like
Mm-hmm.
community, play, and all these
Mm-hmm.
aspects, you're working on something really, really, beautiful that brings all these things together to the forefront of your project. So I want to hear about the basketball league. How is
Yeah.
that going? I think I may have had eyes on a pitch while I was out there. And so,
Right, right.
yeah, friend, tell me about the league. How is it going?
Yeah, so exciting news. So the league, again, like, reminders for the audience, like, my Monty and I are creating essentially a basketball community hub for women and the LGBTQI athletes, no cis men specifically. So in terms of our first, I guess you can call it, pillar of the league or of the community, is a woman, and again, like, in queer league specific folks. Um, so we've done a lot of like networking, community building within our county, and we actually reached out to our recreational specialist, essentially, who organizes lots of just sports leagues or sports and recs programs for our county, and essentially asked them, like, how can we partner and how do we as community members become more tapped in with you all as the rec centers, because we have this idea of creating this league for essentially people that I feel like are left out in like the basketball community, again, women and the like LGBTQIA like athletes. So I mean, they loved it, they loved the idea, and they had to be, I guess, presented to their higher ups, because even though they were very like just into poor and very gung-ho and thought that we were great sales pitch when we met with them, they had to like secure it with their higher ups. But this week, actually, we got some news, and they actually did approve our leagues. Essentially, they're I know, yeah, that's super exciting. Um, so they're essentially gonna provide the infrastructure support, so the gym, the refs, the scoreboards,
Wow.
and
That's
but
a
we
huge
wanted to
win,
make sure
friend.
it is, yeah, we're super excited. But we wanted to make sure that the brand feel, the people that we were our targeted audience, again, women and the LGBTQIA athletes, were really at the forefront and the face of this league. So we had this negotiation and with them that we're happy to run the day-to-day operations and the recruitment, and we want this like co-branded. It's not just a sports and rec program, it's a league led by Hoop As You Are, which is our LLC name, so that the brand feel and the people that we're attracting are really like just focused on the target population. So that's where we're at. So we're due for a follow-up chat with the sports and recs team, but definitely a huge win. And again, it goes back to just our intention to creating spaces for people that have intersecting identities like myself and my partner. So super exciting news to share with you, friend, and with and in the platform.
So exciting, friend. Like, two things that I just want to mention. One, the smile when you were talking about this project was so beautiful to see. I feel like when I think about, like, you know, like, I'm trying to figure out what this life project is, and like, in looking at you talk about this baby of yours, you just have the biggest smile on your face. You can tell that it's something that you are very passionate about, very value aligned with. And so that's just one thing I want to mention, because I can see that just being all the way here in the Bay Area, you're all the way in the East Coast, but I can see that big smile on your face as you're talking about this. And then two, like, you saw a gap and y'all made it happen. Like, this is something where, like, you know, like, nothing like this existed. This was like a creative idea that came to you and Amani, and you both made it happen to the point where now you're in conversations with your county. You got approval to have this infrastructure in place. Like, that is, you know, that's magic. Y'all made magic together and brought something that will have a very real impacts in these specific communities, these queer communities that really want this space to play ball and you know, build community with others.
No, yeah, I appreciate the support, and no, super stoked. And to your point, I think the feeling of like how it just brightens me up, and I get all giggly and like, oh my god, let me just talk about this forever and ever. I think those are like just real signs for me that this is the creative project and just the endeavor that I want to take on, and I do feel very passionately about. And the most beautiful part is I get to do it with my partner. I mean, my fiance. Let's get that together. So yeah, I'm excited to share more as it develops, and yeah, I'm excited to celebrate the huge milestones on that end as well.
Yes, friend, absolutely. You got to keep us updated, keep me updated as well. But I know you mentioned the name. What's the social media where, you know, people can reach y'all?
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate the plug. So it's the name again is Hoop As You Are, and we are on Instagram, which is our handle is Haya, HAYA_hoops. So yeah, and we're launching the league in spring 2025.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. We'll definitely follow that creative journey with you and Amani.
For sure.
Who knows, maybe we'll have Amani on the podcast so she can give us her perspective on the league building.
No, definitely. And yeah, definitely want to share more about even the creative process with the logo, because that required community effort as well. But we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, I love, friend, that this is something like this creative life project that you outside of yourself that you're building with your partner is something that if you were to look back at your childhood, you know, it's something that you already loved. Like we talked about on this podcast about loving basketball. That's something that you've always has been dear to your heart, and now it's part of this larger creative life project. So I'm so curious, like, for our audience, like, if they can go back to, you know, like, similar to little Mary or little Dalia, like your younger self, what were some of the things that you all love to create and play with? Because, you know, who knows, that might give you some insight into what that creative life project is. I know I'll definitely be thinking about that now.
Definitely. Thanks for tuning in. Creative Hora is a podcast production hosted by Dalia Zaragoza and Mary Figueroa. This episode is edited by Abdullah Kawish and is produced by akstudio.global.